Good evening, everyone. My name is Kimberly Johnson. I have the pleasure of being the Director of Admissions here at TEAK Fellowship. Thank you so much for being here. This is one more call before we start the info session. If you have not already done so, please make sure that you put your child's first and last name into the chat box, as attendance at today's information session is a required part of the admissions process for the student and the parents. And now we will begin with our presentation. So again, this is the TEAK Fellowship. I am here with my admissions team. I'm happy to say again that I am the Director of Admissions. Again, my name is Kimberly Johnson. I've had the pleasure of working at TEAK since August of 2022. And prior to that, my background was in college admissions for approximately 22 years. With me today, and they'll be introducing themselves later in the presentation, are my Associate Director of Admissions, Ms. Erin Rodriguez, as well as our admissions counselor, Roberto Martinez, who during the presentation will be giving you his unique spin on everything having to do with TEAK, as he was a TEAK fellow and recently graduated from college. So again, thank you for being here, and this is the admissions team. So before we get started, as I've already shared with all of you, please make sure that you put your child's first and last name into the chat box, as that is a required part of the admissions process for the student as well as the guardian. We do ask that during today's presentation that you keep your microphone muted if you are not speaking. We want to make sure that everyone is able to hear the presentation. Additionally, cameras are optional, but we absolutely encourage you to put your camera on if you like, because as the admissions process starts, we would like to see your face and get to know who you are. Also, if you have a question, you can make sure that you put it into the chat box. If I'm unable to answer it at any point, either Erin or Roberta will be monitoring the chat so that they can answer it as well. And I will be monitoring it when the two of them are speaking. And then lastly, send any questions that you have in the chat. And if any point you are unable to hear any of us, please put it in the chat box. You can either send it to everyone, or you can send it to either myself, Erin, or Roberto, and we will be happy to either answer your question in the chat or be sure to answer your question at the end of the presentation. So what is TEAK Fellowship? So most importantly, TEAK Fellowship is a free 10-year academic enrichment program, and it is for high-achieving sixth graders who live within 4 boroughs of New York City. Those 4 boroughs are the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan, and we will go into a little bit more of why it's only those 4 boroughs in a couple of slides. TEAK Fellowship is absolutely free. It is a free 10-year program. And what we believe at TEAK is that motivation and potential, not economic circumstances, should determine a child's future. TEAK, in addition to what I've listed already, is in addition to the schooling that your children already have. So if your child is currently in 6th grade, they would stay in their 6th grade year at their school, but then once they start 7th grade, they would add TEAK onto the education that they're already doing. So TEAK is in addition to the school that your child is already in. TEAK also believes that we are unlocking access for outstanding education and transformative experiences for exceptional New York City students. We want to make sure that they're using all the opportunities that we give them, not only to change their lives, but the lives of those around them. And we certainly believe in our 4 ships, as we refer to them, which is scholarship, leadership, citizenship, and fellowship. So those are the 4 core values of TEAK Fellowship. So what is the TEAK way? So as I previously mentioned with TEAK, we make sure that the student is still in their school that they are currently in, or that they will be in as a 7th grader. But what TEAK does is that we have highly individualized student support, and we make sure that we are doing that from the time that the student starts at TEAK, which would end up being at the very beginning of 7th grade, right before they start 7th grade. So your children are currently 6th graders. During this academic year is when they go through the admissions process for TEAK, and then they will find out in May if they are accepted to TEAK, and if they are, they would start a program that we have that's called Summer Institute, which we will be speaking about on a future slide. During the academic year, the students actually have during the Summer Institute, as well as during the academic year, the students have small class sizes. So they specifically have one teacher to 12 to 16 students. They also have what's called the Dean Advising System. So every student that comes into TEAK is assigned a dean who we call the MSA Dean, MSA standing for Middle School Academy, and they are assigned to work with your child. So think of the MSA Dean or the Middle School Dean, just like your child's school counselor is. It's someone who is assigned to them to make sure that they're speaking to them, finding about any of their needs, etc. Also, we have a mentor program. So the mentor program also starts when the student first starts at TEAK, and the mentor program continues throughout the entire time that the student is in TEAK, which again is 10 years. Additionally, we make sure that we do rigorous and relevant curriculum, not only during Summer Institute, but also during the Middle School Academy, which is during the academic year, which will be explained on a slide that is coming up. With that rigorous and relevant curriculum, we are doing STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're also doing multicultural history because we know that students may not be learning about another history while they are in school. So we want to make sure that they're not just learning American history, but they're learning about different cultures as well. So we do that not only through classes, but also through the activities that we do. And then finally, leadership and public speaking is huge to us because many of our students, because of how well they do, they end up having to interview to go into either an independent day school, a boarding school, or a specialized high school. So we always want to make sure that leadership and public speaking is something that is very easy to them because they will be doing some point of interview when they are trying to get into high school and then eventually into college. So again, that is the TEAK way. And now I will turn it over to my colleagues so that they can talk about the Middle School Academy.
Thanks, Kimberly. So good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Rodriguez. I am the Associate Director of Admissions for TEAK. I have been at TEAK since May of 2022, so about a year and a half now. I absolutely love what this program stands for and how it changes so many lives. So I'm excited to share that with you throughout the next hour. So I'm going to get started by talking about our middle school academy. So as Kimberly mentioned, for our middle school students, we begin with our Summer Institute. So Summer Institute, or SI as we call it at TEAK, begins the summer after students are accepted into TEAK. So the students during previous years were actually at a school called the Browning School, which is located on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. As our program grows, this may change, but for now, they will likely still be at the Browning School next year. So they're going to attend Summer Institute every summer during their middle school years. I'll be talking a little bit more about Summer Institute on the next slide. Then during the school year, students will attend classes after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we actually have offsites in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. So students will be assigned one of these sites based off the location of their school and their home. So just to provide a little bit of insight, our location in the Bronx is at Fordham Prep. In Queens, it's at Q Forest School. And in Brooklyn, it's located at St. Anne's School. So as I mentioned, during the summer following a student's admittance into TEAK, they're going to begin their first year of Summer Institute. Summer Institute is a 6-week academic and enrichment program that TEAK fellows will attend after their 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years. The program typically begins in early July and goes through mid-August. So while the students are taking classes that reflect and emulate a private or independent school environment, this is not summer school for our students. Our students actually do enjoy these 6 weeks. So typically from Monday through Thursday, the students are going to participate in a variety of classes, but they're also able to participate in a variety of clubs that the students can choose from according to their interests. There's also going to be outdoor time, catered lunches, different art activities. So it is really something that our students do enjoy. And then every Friday, the students have the opportunity to participate in excursions or trips in and around New York City, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few slides.
Okay, so thank you, Aaron. My name is Roberto Martinez. I am the admissions counselor for TEAK. And as Kimberly mentioned, I am also a TEAK alum. And so I'm very excited to have this role in order to help all of you attain some of the same opportunities that I had while I was a TEAK fellow. As Aaron alluded to, every summer during their middle school lives, the fellows will have Summer Institute. Summer Institute offers various classes that prepare the students for um, their high school classes, as well as the SSAT and other standardized tests that they might take. During Summer Institute, they'll take classes such as Reading Foundations, which is a class that will help them better understand and analyze complicated literature, while a class like writing mechanics will teach them how to adequately express their thoughts through writing. Um, as Kimberly mentioned at the start, we really emphasize the importance of public speaking to our fellows, and for that reason, they'll take a Shakespeare class where they'll be able to work and improve on those skills. Just yesterday, we had our gala, and our middle school fellows were able to perform. I believe it was the soundtrack of In the Heights in front of 700 people, which is something that they are able to do because of their public speaking skills being developed during Summer Institute. Um, Also, as Aaron mentioned, our TEAK fellows do enjoy their 6 weeks at Summer Institute by taking classes such as coding or lab sciences, where they'll conduct really cool experiments, as well as attend club twice a week. And as you can see here, they're really based on their interests. So you have anything from anime club to a chess club.
So something that I feel really sets TEAK apart from other similar enrichment programs is that this is not solely an academic program. We really believe in class bonding, expression, stress relief, enjoyment. And we feel like those are all equally important to a student's growth and development. So TEAK actually has a program called CATS, or Culture at TEAK on Saturdays, that occurs during the school year. Essentially, we really want to expose our students to the arts and other cultural enrichment experiences, such as Broadway shows, museums, sports games. And this past month, we actually took our students to see Jaja's African hair braiding on Broadway. I believe Kimberly joined them on that trip, which was really awesome. I think in a few weeks, they're also going to see another show in Brooklyn. So it's super fun and engaging activities. And all of this programming, such as CATS, comes at no cost to the family. So TEAK will cover everything involved with these trips. And then during the summer, as I touched on a little bit before, every Friday during Summer Institute, the students will participate in field trips in and around New York City. A few examples from this past year include Wildcat Mountain, the Brooklyn Roller Rink, Ellis Island, and the Statue of Liberty. And one particular excursion that I always like to point out at our information sessions, because it's something that sticks out to a lot of our fellows, is Mark Becker Day, where our students actually will visit our former board president's estate and have kind of like a field day. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but we are hoping that his family does carry on the tradition, because it's something that really did mean a lot to him. But it is a day that I do like to point out because our students really connect with it. There's food trucks, field day games, bowling. And so that's really one of their favorite days during the summer. So this is Chloe. She is a current 11th grader from class 21 of TEAK. Chloe likes to describe TEAK as a community that accepts you as you are. So we have students from all different backgrounds and neighborhoods throughout New York City that ride this program together. As I mentioned earlier, we really try to put a strong emphasis on class bonding, because we really want to make sure that all of our students within the program feel heard, accepted, and do feel like they are a part of something valuable and bigger than themselves. One of the reasons that Chloe initially applied to TEAK was because she felt like she wasn't being challenged at her current middle school and really wanted to take her skills to the next level. That is something super common that we tend to hear among our fellows. She does feel like she has since been challenged by TEAK, but she also enjoys that she gets that one-on-one support from the deans, advisors, and other teachers within TEAK that are able to get her to that next level, but in an enjoyable and supportive way. So like I said before, we really do feel like that balance between the academics and a student's enjoyment is super crucial to the success of a young person. She also mentioned that she discovered a newfound passion for public speaking and theater after her Shakespeare class at Summer Institute. This is something that we've heard a lot from our older students when we ask them about their TEAK experiences. Malik, who's actually our Shakespeare instructor during the summer, has this amazing way of really making everyone feel comfortable and really building their confidence, especially for our middle schoolers.
Yes, and so TEAK really prides itself on helping students develop academically, but we also pride ourselves on making sure that students develop to be well-rounded individuals who are ready for high school, college, and beyond. One of the ways that we ensure that students become well-rounded individuals is through the many transformational experiences that we offer. With the first being, as soon as they join, assigning them a mentor or matching them with a mentor based on similar interests, career goals, passions, etc. This mentor will help the fellow create goals for high school and help them figure out the best way to achieve them. They will provide them with insight on what it is that they do in their careers and help the student navigate what they might want to do. TEAK fellows will also go through many mock interviews throughout their 10 years to really build up those skills that will be necessary when they are interviewing for high school, internships, and college and such. And once they get to college, they receive another mentor. Basically, this mentor is a career coach, and they will help the fellow get started on their career, and they will help them along their career path, primarily by opening themselves up as a resource and opening up their network to the fellow so that they can gain those connections into in their careers.
And in addition to that, One of the things that I said at the beginning of the presentation is that it's very important to us that our students know about citizenship. So one of the things that we have that's required is that all of our students have to do community service events. So one of those that they take part in is Meals on Wheels. They also have community service days, such as Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a day when they all have to do something within their community. If they cannot find something, we have several organizations that we work with that will allow them to do that. And then we also have what is called Summer of Service, where all of the students will actually, typically the high school students and some of the college students will end up doing things in the summertime where they are also doing service and giving back to the community. And oftentimes for the high school students, it also is super helpful because they can use those community service hours. Oftentimes they can use them towards their high school community service hours. In addition to some of the things that Roberto shared, we also make sure that we do visits to places like Google, Royal Bank of Canada, Apollo Global Management. So we want to make sure that we're showing students different options for what their careers can be. So we usually will find out what the students are interested in, and then members of our different team at TEAK will find ways that we're able to get the students to visit those places of employment so that they can see several options for themselves. And then most recently, we actually revamped a program that we had, and we now call it Power and Launch, and it is specifically for our college-aged fellows. And I will let Roberto speak about his experience with Power and Launch, as he was one of the first students that went through that particular series.
Yes, thank you, Kimberly. And so what Power and Launch Series is a series of workshops geared towards helping college-age students with professional skill development and wellness. I know that the last workshop I went to focused on the power of introductions and elevator pitches. And so we worked with the host to craft our elevator pitches and to practice them to get to a place where we are comfortable if we were to meet any person for a job, uh, introducing ourselves and providing them with our elevator pitch.
So something that I know a lot of you are already thinking about, high school placement. TEAK actually has a designated team to assist with all things high school placement. So they're going to help the students and the parents to develop a list based off of the student's individuality. Something really awesome that they offer is they have sessions with school admissions officers exclusively for TEAK students, so that our students can get to know the different schools and the different contacts within those schools. Another really cool thing that they do is take the 8th graders on a 2-night boarding school retreat. And this gives them a really good idea of the boarding school atmosphere. They're of course going to assist with all things test prep, interview practice, application help. Another super important thing is they're going to walk through the entire financial aid process with you. And they're really going to make sure that you're getting the most aid possible. They'll actually work with each and every school to make sure that everything is correct on your application. They also make sure that it is known that this is a TEAK student. TEAK tends to have a super good name with these really good high schools, so it's always a plus to have that on your application. And again, I do want to stress that TEAK doesn't pay tuition for high school, but we will help our students to work with their independent boarding school or parochial school. And our families are leaving debt-free. TEAK has a super strong belief that no family should have to take out loans in order to attend high school. So we really do make sure that that doesn't happen for our students. Another really awesome thing that sets our program apart from other similar programs is that we work with our parents just as much as we work with the students throughout this entire process. We know that a lot of you have some apprehensions towards possibly sending your child away to a boarding school in a different state or even to a school that's across the city. So we'll sit with each and every parent individually. We'll offer them any support that they need and answer any questions that they have throughout the process. So as you can see here, TEAK fellows go on to attend some of the finest high schools in the country. Some choose to go to all boys schools, some choose to go to all girls schools. Some will even decide to take their talents beyond New York City and attend boarding schools in other states. I know we have students at boarding schools in New England, Virginia, California. Although we do encourage our students to attend independent high schools, we will offer students counseling for any school that they are interested in. So we'll offer counseling for the specialty schools, public schools, regular day schools, boarding schools. One thing that we do ask of our students is that they put at least one of each type of school on their list so that we can make sure that they're really exploring the different options and find the best school for them.
Thank you, Erin. So this is Brandon. He is actually one of our fellows currently going through the high school placement process that Erin described. And as you could see here, Brandon got the chance to code his own video game during his MSA classes, which we spoke about earlier. And he said he really enjoyed this. He felt like this was an experience that he only got because of TEAK. And I feel like that really speaks to the types of unique experiences that TEAK is able to provide for their fellows, not just in the classroom, but outside as well. And speaking of unique experiences, I know that having gone through the process myself, one of the many unique experiences I received was, finding out what boarding school even was. I attended St. George's High School in Rhode Island, but prior to TEAK, I had no idea that that was an option for me. So I feel like TEAK does a great job at laying out all the different options that your children will have for high school, like Erin mentioned. And not only do we lay out the different options, but we allow the students to gain experience and or to really be able to experience what those different options feel like by taking them on that that overnight trip to boarding schools, like Erin mentioned, or by bringing the school's reps right to the office and meeting the student where they're at, so that they get a sense of what the school is like from the school reps themselves. And so those are some of the ways in which the high school process works and is really great. And lastly, I do want to emphasize Brandon's quote here, because I really do feel like TEAK is a great place where students feel safe enough to try things, fail, and be able to learn and grow from their failures.
So now we're going to talk about high school programs. So after your child goes through the middle school experience, the next step would be the high school and the college programs. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the things that are on here. We will also be able to briefly speak about them during the Q&A as well, if anybody has any additional questions about them. So the most important thing that I do want to emphasize on this slide is the in-person visits and phone check-ins. So whether your student is going to a specialized high school here in New York City, a day school, a boarding school, a parochial school, a public or a charter high school, we make sure, we being the team at TEAK, that their middle school dean or the dean that they are assigned to are checking in on them either in person or via telephone every 2 weeks. So the students that live locally and go to school locally, they can either come to our office or they can do a telephone call or a Zoom call with their dean, and the students who are actually away at school, whether that is for college or for high school, we make sure that at least once per semester that our deans go and visit the students. So for instance, right now, our college and our high school teams are about to go and see the students who are away at school so that they see them at least one time, likely before the Thanksgiving break. So we make sure that we do that with all of our students. And if we feel that there needs to be additional check-ins, we also actually have the opportunity, if they need to also speak to our director of counseling, who is part of our staff and also will speak to the students if they feel that any students may be having some challenges or need to speak with someone besides their middle school dean. Additionally, wanted to talk about fellows forums. Those are times that all of the students who are in a certain cohort will come together. If you hadn't already realized, we call all of the students who are accepted to TEAK fellows. So when we have a fellows forum, that means that that cohort or that class of fellows comes together to discuss any needs or anything that is going on with them or anything that's important to their class. So right now, our juniors in high school are starting their whole college admissions experience. And now our seniors are at the point that they have put in their college applications. So we have forums about things like that so that they know exactly what they should be doing during that high school important time. We also have our students do paid internships. We feel that it's very important that when students are starting to learn about life itself, that they should be doing internships, but they should be getting paid for those because they are doing work. So even if a student doesn't have an internship that pays them, TEAK will make sure that each student has some type of paid internship during the time that they are in high school and or college. We also have study abroad programs where some of our students may not only be in high school, they may be away at high school, but then they, as a student, may also go somewhere else for school. So, for instance, we had a student that was in Japan last year. He was going to high school at a certain high school, but then for study abroad, he actually went to Japan. So, even our students are doing that not only in high school, but in college as well. Erin did also share about there being college guidance and test prep. So we do test prep not only for high school, but also for the students that are looking to go to college as well. So that's the SAT, the ACT, any standardized tests. We do have test prep for that. Roberto, as well as Erin, spoke about professional coaching. That is something that happens during all of the years that the student is in TEAK. And then we also make sure that we are taking our students to college visits, not only locally, but we also take them away to schools that are out of state. And those trips are supervised by members of our TEAK staff. We usually have about 3 or 4 of our staff members go with students on those college visits. And there is at least 1, possibly 2 overnight visits for when they're doing college visits as typically 11th graders. And then last but not least, we have our TEAK Family Collaborative, which we call TFC for short, because we know that it is a lot of a transition and it is 10 years that you're also committing to when your child is in school and away at school or in high school. We also make sure that we have the families come together. So we do different events. Like, for instance, in the next 3 weeks, we'll be doing what we call TEAKsgiving, where we have a potluck in the office at the TEAK main office, and all of the families will come together so that they are having a time together, because we know some of your students may not be able to come home until they are home for Christmas break. So we do events like that. We also will do a chat and chew, as they call it. We'll also do a paint and chew, as they call it, where we'll paint pictures. They've also done pottery at our office. So not only do we do things for the students, we do things for the families and the siblings of the students, because we know that all of you are doing this for 10 years together. So that's a little bit more about our high school and college programming.
Yes, and as Kimberly alluded to, TEAK fellows usually gain acceptance into some of the top colleges and universities in the nation, with about 40% of our last class getting into and attending Ivy League schools. These are schools such as Cornell or Columbia that you might have heard of, Harvard and Yale as well, and other universities such as Franklin and Marshall, which is where I just graduated from college as well. But the point is that TEAK will help the fellows get into uh, the schools that they would like to go to, and most importantly, much like in high school, we will also make sure that we are helping fellows attain the best financial aid so that they can afford to go to these colleges.
We show you this slide because we really do feel like TEAK's impact and statistics do speak for themselves. This is mainly because we guide our fellows to discover their passions and goals. We pair them with trained individuals that will help them to improve in any areas that they do want to grow in. And I think that's what makes TEAK students so successful, is that they're really given the tools to become the best versions of themselves and to get into the schools that will actually help them to blossom. So our TEAK average SAT score in 2023 was actually 1380. So just to put that into perspective, the national average was 1050. So as you can see, TEAK students are way beyond that, over 300 points to be exact. We really individually focus on each student to make sure that they're working on certain areas and offer them that test prep so they can improve their scores over time. We also have college counselors on staff and financial aid advisors to work with both the schools and the families to optimize their financial aid and scholarships, while also making sure that the student is looking at the right schools for them.
So this is me. As I mentioned, I attended St. George's uh, for high school, and attended Franklin and Marshall for college. And these are really two of my proudest moments. And this is why I'm really grateful to TEAK, because not only did my parents immigrate to the US in order to provide me with better educational opportunities, but that is the reason why I joined TEAK. And I feel like that is exactly what TEAK provided me. I was able to go to those amazing schools, study abroad several times, conduct research, which I was really interested in, and things of the sort. Um, but what I'm really trying to get to is that TEAK not only opens up the doors for our fellows to attend these different schools and have these many different experiences, but we also strive to make sure that we prepare our fellows for the hardships and adversity that is to come at each of those steps, and making sure that they're prepared and can get through that.
We really want to emphasize that TEAK is completely free for our fellows and their families. There's no catch to that. It actually is free. All of the academic and extracurricular programming is covered at no cost to the students or their families. So this includes books, transportation, their Chromebook, supplies, even snacks in between their classes. That being said, because TEAK is completely free, we do expect a great deal of time and commitment from our fellows and their families. I like to say that this by no means is an easy journey, but it is undoubtedly an immensely rewarding one, and that is definitely shown in our statistics.
Okay, and so now I will walk you through what are some of the criteria that we look for in eligible applicants. And so the first is that the student must currently be in the sixth grade at a school in New York City, and they must also be a New York City resident. Secondly, the student must have 90% or above in all classes. We know that different schools have different grading systems, and so we work with the different schools and the different report cards to make sure that we compare all applicants on the same field. Thirdly, we look for applicants to have a strong attendance record. As Aaron mentioned, we provide a lot of free programming, but mandatory programming, and so we require strong attendance. Next, they must come from a family with financial need, and we will outline exactly what that means in the coming slides. And lastly, the student must be a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. I do want to emphasize that this is only the student. We will not ask for anybody else in the family's legal status.
And before I start with this slide, I just want to encourage anyone that if there are any questions that you have, you can start to put them into the chat. Myself, Erin, and Roberto will definitely answer them in the order in which they're put into the chat box. But we do just have about 4 more slides left, and we will get to your questions at the end. So feel free to start typing them in the chat box if you like. So now we're going to quickly talk about income requirements. So the easiest way to look at this slide is to look at your household size column and then look at your maximum income requirement. So for this example, let's say that you have a family of 5. What that means is that there's at least 1, possibly 2 parents in the household or a guardian who are claiming the child on their taxes. If that family has 5 people in it, the maximum income requirement combined for the entire household cannot exceed $152,500. If it is anywhere below $152,500, that means that your child qualifies financially for TEAK. So you're always looking at your household size column, and then you're looking at the maximum income requirement column. And if your household size and that maximum income requirement number, if your income in your household is lower than that number, then your child financially qualifies for TEAK. We do make sure that if anyone has any individualized questions, because we know that everyone's income is different, we are happy to do an individual appointment with any of you via telephone or by Zoom video. And we will have a slide at the end with all of our information and how you can book an appointment with us. So now what are your next steps? So now that you have attended our information session, the next step is that you're going to complete a feedback form that we have at the very end of the presentation. There will be a slide with that information, and it will include a QR code. Once you make sure that you do that, your next step is that you need to make sure, if you have not already done so, that you submit the 5th grade report card for your child so that we can determine academic eligibility. Please keep in mind that you should email that to admissions@teakfellowship.org. And also, just as an aside, if your child is in a school that has a rating system of 1 to 4, we are looking for at least 4s and maybe at the most 1 or 2 3s on their report card. If your child is in a school where they have a 100-point scale, your child should have 90s and above on their report card. If your child is in a school where there are letter grades, so A through F, your child should have mostly A's, maybe at the most 1 or 2 B's. And then finally, if your child is in a school where they list meets expectations, exceeds expectations, we want it to be that that student would have mostly exceeds expectations. So I just wanted to say that as an aside, because I know that every school does things differently with their academic system and their rating systems. Also, after you do step number 1 and 2, there will be emailed instructions that are going to come to you, and you will have to complete the application through ravenna-hub.com. And now we're going to talk about the application requirements.
So just to emphasize what Kimberly said, we need those final 5th grade report cards emailed to admissions@teakfellowship.org in order for you to get the actual application instructions. So what does that round 1 application consist of? So on our online round 1 application, We're going to ask for the completion of questions through our application. So this includes a series of parent statements and a series of student short essays. We also ask for 2 mandatory teacher recommendations. So one must be from a math teacher and one must be from an ELA teacher. This can be either their 5th or 6th grade math or ELA teachers. So how that recommendation process actually works is once you're actually in the process of applying, you'll be able to delegate the forms to the prospective teachers. So you'll actually just enter in their email into the form and it'll go directly to the teacher. Once the teacher fills it out and submits it, it'll come directly back to us. We do highly suggest that you speak to them prior to delegating them the form so that they know to look out for it. Some teachers last year got it in their spam box. So it's really important that you communicate with them so that they know to expect it. There's also an option to submit a supplemental recommendation. The supplemental recommendation can be completed by another teacher of your choice, a mentor, coach, religious leader, someone that you feel really knows your potential that's not in your family or friends. Again, that supplemental recommendation is optional, but the ELA and math recommendations are required. Just really quick, in regards to the recommendations, a super common question that we tend to receive is, what if I have the same teacher for both ELA and math? So in that case, we would actually recommend that you first try and reach out to your 5th grade teachers to submit a recommendation on your behalf. If for whatever reason that is not possible, we will accept both recommendations from the same teacher. However, we would just recommend that you try and submit a 3rd supplemental recommendation from another core class teacher, like social studies, science, foreign language, and that way we can really gauge how they are with different teachers. Finally, we're going to ask for the 1st quarter 6th grade report card when it becomes available. There's actually an optional step to upload the 5th grade state exam scores. This is not required. I really want to stress that it's not going to be held against you if it's not uploaded. We look at every application holistically. It won't be counted against you. And then last but not least, we will ask for self-reported financial information. Proof will be requested should you move on to the finalist round. So for that reason, we do ask that you do refer to your 2022 tax return or W-2s to make sure that you're really giving us the most accurate information so that we can determine your eligibility. So that application is going to be due January 31st before 5:00 p.m. We highly recommend that you do get started as soon as possible. It does tend to take some time to get those recommendations and fill out all of the questions. We want to make sure that you have enough time to ask us any questions that you have. After round 1, we will evaluate every application to determine who is going to move on to the finalist round or round 2. The student and their parent will be notified if they move on to the finalist round at the beginning of March, usually on or before March 10th. They would find out if they move on. So finalists that move on to the 2nd round will be required to take an admissions exam. In the past, it was the SSAT. However, there's a possibility that they may change that to an exam called the IC, These are both exams that are typically used for high school admissions. There's no minimum score for this exam. We don't need our students that are going to take the exam to prepare for it. We're going to look at their entire application holistically. We also ask that the students participate in an interview with their parent or guardian. And then finally, this is the step where the parent is going to finally upload their official financial documents like their federal tax return, W-2s, any proof of Social Security, etc. And again, I just want to stress that that second round is only for finalists, and that is going to be due on March 29th before 5:00 p.m. Students will be notified if they are accepted, denied, or waitlisted into the program at the beginning of May. And then finally, we are going to ask you to kindly complete this feedback form. This is a way that we can really make sure that you attended the entire session and fulfilled that requirement. But there's also a few additional questions that we would love to hear from you. It should take no longer than 2 to 3 minutes. You could just scan that QR code or copy the link at the top. If you'd like to take a picture of it and then complete it after the session, that works as well. Just make sure that you try to have that done before tomorrow so that we can verify that you were here.
And then finally, I just wanted to share with everyone, there were some questions that I received privately in the chat. And I also wanted to address the one that was already listed here in the chat for everyone. There was someone who mentioned that they were surprised that there was no Manhattan location for the after school. So within the last academic year, we have started to see an increase in the amount of students who live in Manhattan, specifically Washington Heights, as well as Harlem. We've had a large amount of students from Manhattan that now are actually in TEAK. If a student lives as well as goes to school in Manhattan, they will have to, TEAK, along with the parent, will have to select which one of those off sites that we spoke about are closest for the student. So, for example, if a student lives in Manhattan, but where they live in Manhattan, perhaps it is the Lower East Side, it might make more sense for that student to go to the Brooklyn offsite to go to the after school program. If the student lives in Harlem, or perhaps they live in the middle of Manhattan, it might make more sense for them to go to the Bronx location, or depending on where they live, might make sense for them to go to the Queens location. However, also want to let you know that because there is an influx of a lot more students who are coming from Harlem and different parts of Manhattan, we are trying our hardest that by hopefully 2026, we would definitely have an offsite that is in Manhattan. So that is something that I am furiously working on, because I know that there are so many students that are in Manhattan. So it would be easier if there was a Manhattan site. We actually are working on a survey right now so that we can get more feedback from current as well as prior students and families that were a part of TEAK. So we are trying our hardest for that Manhattan site. But for right now, if your child was admitted to TEAK, they would only have the option of Bronx, Brooklyn, or Queens for their offsite. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that out loud, because I don't know if everyone saw that particular question in the chat box. There also was another student another person who specifically asked a question only to me, and I thought it was important to share it with all of you. And before I do that, please note that if you look on the screen, that is our contact screen. So if you do want to make an appointment with us, that is the way to do so. And that is actually also my direct telephone number. So the office hours are there, as well as the telephone number. So the question that I was asked privately was, what if you are earning the maximum income at first, but then your income increases over the years? So if you are making the maximum right now, as long as it does not go over during the admissions process, then your child is still financially eligible for TEAK. If the child gets into TEAK and then the income increases, the child will not be removed from TEAK. The income is only reviewed during the admissions process for TEAK, and as long as the income that you self-reported is not higher than the maximum income for your household size, your child can remain in TEAK as long as they are also academically eligible for TEAK. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that out loud because it was a question that was sent to me privately, and I thought it was important to share with everyone. We are mindful of the fact that it is now 7 o'clock. The floor is now open if anyone has any questions. We will keep it open until 7:05. Was there anyone that had any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can put your question in the chat so that everyone can see it. Okay. That either means that we did really well or you're not sure. But we are happy that you are here regardless. We want to make sure that you have one more opportunity to take a picture of this page that's here. And then if anyone has any other questions, you can certainly reach out to myself, Erin, or Roberto. But if you just contact us here, either at the telephone numbers that are listed there, we are happy to be in touch with you. Feel free to speak to myself or Erin, or if you want to know more about the experience of being an actual TEAK fellow, feel free to reach out to Roberto directly. So I don't see that we have any other questions in the chat. I like to be mindful of everyone's time. So I would like to thank all of you for being here, and we look forward to getting those TEAK applications. So thank you so much, everyone. I apologize. There was one more question that someone asked, so I want to make sure that I answer it. The person asked about where the location is for the Bronx and what are the after school hours again. So I'll repeat all of the locations as well as the times. So the after school program is always Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. The 3 different offsites that we have are in the Bronx. It is at Fordham Preparatory Academy, which is on the campus of Fordham University. For Brooklyn, the offsite or the after school site is at St. Anne's School, which is in the Brooklyn Heights section of Brooklyn. And then if you are in Queens, the offsite for there or the after school for there is the Q Forest School, which is in Forest Hills. So that's where the locations are. And the after school program only takes place during the academic year. TEAK Fellowship follows the same academic calendar as the New York City public school system. So whenever your child is out of school, and usually on a break such as midwinter recess, Christmas break, spring break, we honor those same holidays. So if your child does get accepted to TEAK, they only would have to do the Tuesdays and the Thursdays from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. For the time that they are with us during their middle school years only, and they only have to go to school when school is in session. So hopefully that answered that last question that the person had. Was there anybody else that had a question? You can either unmute yourself or you can put it into the chat. There was one person that says that the student need the SSAT. Every student who is a part of our admissions process must take either the SSAT or there is another exam that we are considering. I'm putting the name of the exam in the chat box. If you want to look it up, it is called the IC. So those are the 2 exams that we're considering are the SSAT and the IC. We do not require that students do any studying for these exams. We are simply having the students sit for this standardized test so that we can see where they are academically, and it helps us for when we have the students sit in classes with our teachers during the after school program. So there's no prep for it. We just want to see where your child is academically, and every student is required to either do the SSAT or the IC. The decision is still being made which test it will be, but nevertheless, the test will be conducted in March of 24. So likely it will be on the 2nd or the 3rd Saturday of March of 2024 when it is conducted. So if your child gets to that round 2 stage, you will be notified on or around March 10th if they are going to take the IC or the SSAT, and we will let you know exactly what date they're assigned, because we always do that exam for the students in person on either the second or the third Saturday of March every year. Someone did ask if TEAK pays for private school. The answer to that is we absolutely do not. As Erin had mentioned during one of the slides, TEAK is absolutely free for students. And since it is free, at the end of everything that we give to the student, the average student will get $70,000 between all of the schooling that they have, the Chromebook that they receive, the free Metro cards that we give them, the transportation to and from the college visits, looking at different high schools. So we pay for all of those things. We absolutely do not pay for private school. The whole premise of TEAK is that if your child does well enough academically, your child should be able to get merit-based scholarships and get any type of scholarships or grants. And they get that if their grades are good enough. So then their really good grades should be what helps to pay for them to get through them being in a private school or a college. So most of our students come out with zero debt. We do not pay for any schooling for them. We just provide them what TEAK provides. So we, as our team, will always make sure, specifically our high school team, that we are making sure that you're getting the best financial aid possible, but we absolutely do not pay for any schooling for any of our students. Was there anyone else with any other questions? Again, want to be mindful of time because we know you only committed to 6 to 7 p.m. So was there any other questions that anyone else had? Okay. I thank you all so much for being here today. We look forward to receiving those applications, and please make sure that you complete that feedback form. Please make sure that you do it by tomorrow because we want to make sure that we get those application instructions and those links to you. So with that, I wish all of you a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you during the admissions process. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
I think that's everyone. Wait, sorry, my audio stopped working then.
Just make sure you stop recording, Erin.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.